right. Well, welcome back to a new episode of the You're Not Wrong podcast, a podcast where Gen Xer and a millennial talk about culture back then, culture right now, and mostly agree to disagree. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a millennial.
Are you?
Today I might be someone else, but no, most days I'm the millennial.
I'm Nicole, and I'm a Gen Xer.
And today we're joined by someone very special.
Yes.
Hi, guys.
Hey. Welcome.
Yeah, you can tell I haven't done this in a while. Would you like to?
Sam Shepard.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm good.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you have a lot of different jobs.
I do. It's every day is different.
But I think the main way that I know you is from Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it's your Instagram account is Social Shepherd Adventures.
Yes.
But are you also Tampa Bay
So I used to be
Explorer?
Tampa Bay Explorer, and then I
Okay.
started traveling more, and I was like, okay, I've kind of narrowed myself down to only Tampa. So we
Yeah.
kind of need to make the switch into something where, if I'm traveling in this state one week and another state another week, I have a little more flexibility.
Okay.
So that's kind of the reason behind the change, but still a lot of local Tampa-based content.
You do great Tampa-based content. I mean, I
Thank
think
you.
the way I discovered you was looking for food and
Yep.
restaurant ideas and stuff like that. But I mean, you have a huge following. You have over 40,000 Instagram followers.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But it's not though, because the content is really good.
Oh, thank you.
It is. It's not
I'm
really
just
that wild.
flexing, giving me my ego flex over here.
And I also think you have over 100,000 on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TikTok was where I kind of started off initially, but I kind of started during COVID, which
Yeah.
I was working in sports, and then sports were canceled for 3 months.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I'll just go to the gym and the pool and the gym and the pool and the gym and the pool. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go insane.
Yeah,
And
2 weeks in,
Right.
you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't just sit on this bike and treadmill for the rest of my life. And so I started making TikTok videos.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it was just something to just be like, well, maybe somebody will get a giggle out of this.
Yeah.
And then one of my biggest hobbies has always been trying new places and exploring. And I'm kind of an extroverted introvert. So that would always help me, force me kind of to get out of the house.
Right.
And I've always been a huge foodie, so I started just filming these things. And when I would go to these places and these restaurants, I would just get to talking to the manager or the staff, and they'd be like, oh, well, we have this secret trap door in the basement. You want to see it? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to see
Wow.
it. Can I film it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, hell yeah.
That's crazy.
That's so cool.
Crazy. So I was discovered you probably maybe right after COVID or maybe
Okay.
during COVID. And so I noticed that you have great food content, great stuff to do around town. And then I also just noticed you start to do true crime. And so, here at You're Not Wrong, we're huge true crime buffs.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know that. I don't know. Maybe we've only done one other episode.
We've done a few episodes on true crime, but
Yeah.
I think we also have different views on true crime.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we've never really dove in.
We've never delved into.
Yeah, we've never delved too deep into it specifically.
So,
Gotcha.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your approach to true crime and
Okay.
sort of when did you introduce that to some of your content. But first, I want to ask you, where are you from?
I was born in Florida, but raised in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so the North. And as it just wasn't my thing, there was no sun where
Yeah.
I grew up ever. It was compared to Oregon. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, we wouldn't have a single day of sunlight in 4 months.
Okay.
So
yeah, I couldn't do that.
So it
that's
was time
why
to
I live
go.
here.
no,
Yeah.
and that's why people are like, did you have a rough upbringing because you left at 17 from your home? And I'm like, no, I just wanted sunlight.
Some more on your skin.
Seriously.
Well,
Yeah.
you lived here before, so you knew it existed.
Right. And it's you don't realize how depressed you can get when there's no sunlight and for no reason. You'll just wake up and you're like, oh,
Life
another
sucks.
gloomy day.
Exactly. It's Thursday.
Right.
So you came down here at 17 and you just been in the area ever since. You went to school here?
Yeah, so I went down south at 17, started off in Savannah, Georgia, and I went to art school.
Okay.
And so it makes a great excuse for whenever my boyfriend asks me to do math, and I'm like, no, I can't. I went to art school. You have to do it.
That's us. We're in
That's
comms.
us.
Yes,
Math
yes.
comms. Journalism. I don't know anything about the math.
Oh yeah,
But Savannah's
I'm with you.
A big art area. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah, and
cool.
a great school.
Yeah.
Savannah Art and Design.
Savannah College of Art and Design.
Yeah.
It was a blast. And then from there, kind of moved down to Tampa. My parents had moved down this way, so it just kind of naturally happened. And then I've been here for about 7-8 years now.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're more of a native than I feel like.
Yeah,
most
I'm an
are.
honorary native. I feel like.
we'll take you because everyone else
Thank
has
you,
been like
thank
the
you.
last couple years, and I'm like, no, you don't count. You're not part of this.
Doesn't
What about
count.
me? No.
You're
I shunned my Floridianism.
what it is.
Yeah,
It's
I don't want to
I
be
love it.
accepted.
Sam accepts it. You are very
I'm not into it.
cynical
But I
about
do
it all.
like it being sunny. So,
Yes.
I mean, like, all right, so you come down here, you clearly are like very talented in, marketing, design, and,
Thank you.
content.
Yeah, it makes
and-
sense now.
It does. It makes total sense now. And so you start this great, social media following and you create content online, become a digital creator. But you also do some other stuff too, right? You have a podcast.
So I'm starting a podcast.
Okay.
It's going to go live in about the next month or so. I'm just kind of finessing the branding right now,
Okay.
but the podcast is going to be more so like local Florida-based, Tampa-based true crime.
Nice.
Yes, and like spooky stories, cryptids, that kind of thing. So
Skunk Ape?
Skunk Ape.
Stop.
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
Yes.
But I
No,
did just learn what
cryptids are my
cryptid
thing.
meant
Yes.
this week.
Bro, what?
I don't know what that means. What the hell? Why would I know what that
This is how I
means?
know you don't listen to me.
I don't know what
because
you're
I
talking
swear I know I've said these words before.
You said cryptid. I don't ever remember you saying that
Of course
word at
not.
all.
Yeah, it's fine. We only talk
I
for
love it.
hours every week. Anyway, no, that
I'm
sounds really
sorry.
cool. I love that.
Thank you.
So
Thank
what's
you.
the name of the podcast going to be, and where can is it like a thing? I don't want you to speak
It's not
too
a thing
soon.
yet,
All
but
right.
it will be on anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So
Okay.
probably Spotify,
Apple.
all those spots. But
Okay.
it's going to be Floridian. Let me see if I can say this right. Floridian fame. Wait. I'm having a brain fart.
It's
Like
okay.
it's Floridian fame, felonies, fame, fortune, and felonious deeds. That's what it is.
Quite a bit of that here.
Yes.
If there's one spot for it, it's Florida. For
Yes.
Sure.
I agree. Specifically Tampa. Well,
Plus, Florida, it gives you a lot to work with.
It does.
Because Tampa's
It does.
rich in this, but also you go down to the Keys and the weird stuff
my
just
God.
gets
so
weirder.
much crazy
I never
stuff.
knew how much crazy shit. Can I say shit?
Yeah.
I never realized how much crazy shit happens in the Keys of all places.
Carl
that
Hyacin,
Yes,
the
like
author of it all. Yeah,
No.
they're fictional stories, but
I was gonna say that guy
who?
had the girl that he dug up, Elena.
Oh,
And then he
Oh,
kept
wait,
her
yes,
body.
yes, yes.
Oh, bro.
I did a
You
story
guys-
on that,
yes.
dude. That
We did
that
one on that
was
too.
Yeah, we did talk about
crazy.
that. We did talk about that.
That's
one's
crazy.
wild.
I think one of the craziest ones that you did on Instagram, or maybe it was on TikTok too, was the Licata family.
Oh,
Yes, that
What
one
the
was
hell?
nuts. Well, and I made sure to say like in that episode, it's like there's
All right.
Laurel.
Well, they'll last as long as they last.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. little crown malfunction. Yeah, straighten our crowns. But I made sure to like call out in that thing because a lot of people that relayed that story were basically just like, oh yeah, he was a murderer because he was crazy, because he was schizophrenic. And I'm like,
Right.
my grandmother was schizophrenic and she was
not
a
killing
lovely
the whole
lady.
family.
Like
Right.
she was a lovely lady, but like I genuinely do think you can be schizophrenic, have mental problems, but there's also another layer that has to peel back for
I
somebody
agree.
to be on Victor Licata level.
I
like,
agree.
'cause
Sure.
when you look at his pictures, like when you look at his mug, like it gives me
I
goosebumps.
saw
Like,
it. Yeah.
that man has evil in his eyes. Like he
does.
looks scary.
Plus, how do you
Like-
explain all the people that don't have schizophrenia that do evil things?
Right.
You know,
True.
like
Right.
it happens all over the
100%.
spectrum. Yeah.
This is true. How do you research your stuff?
Honestly, just Google.
Just Google.
Yep. I just sit on Google and I go down a wormhole. And then if I find like any other cool stories, I'll like make a note and be like, okay, we'll do this at a later date. But
Gotcha.
It's crazy how much is available. You
Yeah.
know, like I was finding things
Oh,
in,
yeah.
like USF archives and stuff.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
everything's
Yes.
just so open now. It's great.
That's cool. So we're going to hear a lot more of these type of stories on your podcast when it launches.
Yes.
Florida fame. What was he? What is it?
Florida fame, fortune, and felonious deeds.
That kind of segues into what
Well, it's-
you're going to tell us about today.
So, yeah. So, one of the Florida felonious deeds that I think everyone's pretty aware of would be,
People don't know this story, Elizabeth.
Can you let me do the segue?
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Do the transition.
One of the felonious deeds that I think a lot of people are familiar with due to Netflix's fame would be the Tiger King, right?
Of course.
And the attempted assassination, which is the weirdest thing to say, of
God.
Carol Baskins, who we have in the room with us today.
Hey,
Guys.
But you might not know that there was actually who I would say is the real Tiger King, and he lived right here in Tampa. So
Yeah.
The
You're not-
OG, if you will.
exactly.
Such a bizarre story.
And you're not wrong if you don't know who Gene Holloway is, but you're gonna find out today.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so have you guys heard of Gene Holloway?
Sorry, I was like in my head, and you guys cut, and I did like one of these because I was like, I can hear like the music like doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, I was
Have
doing
you-
the same thing.
Have you heard of Gene Holloway? It's okay if you haven't.
I had not really heard of him.
I hadn't heard of him either.
Okay.
Until you kind of brought him back. You know, some people have talked a little bit about it. When I worked at the newspaper, there was like a little bit of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the name of the restaurant, but I didn't really know who
Yeah.
he was.
Girl, I didn't know any of this shit.
Okay,
So
okay.
we did an episode recently on the Bermuda Triangle. And
Love it.
Scary.
best friend of the show.
You see what I'm saying?
That could be on.
She
This could be on the
understands.
podcast.
I feel like the Bermuda Triangle is like one of those places where I'm always gonna like point at it and I'm gonna be like, that's some wild shit right there. But will I ever get on a flight and go
Thank you.
anywhere near? Oh no.
That's what I tried to tell her. She had to
no.
like,
No.
"Oh, you're being irrationally afraid of the Bermuda Triangle.
You
And I'm
called it.
like, no, this is
I'm-
actually scary.
Yeah, I'm not going over there on a plane, a boat. I don't care.
I
I
wanna
don't
see
want to go
what's up.
nowhere near it.
I want to see what's going on.
Okay, you go right ahead.
I will. And when I come back, I'll let you know. Or maybe I won't be able to.
I'm gonna have to find a new co-host.
If I can have like a jetpack on my back and like if I'm going anywhere near there, I want like a parachute, a jetpack, like water boots where they like have the jets on the bottom. Yes, and I want to have like little Bowie knives because if a shark comes after me, like I
don't think sharks are your biggest issue out
you
there,
guys,
but I'm
we
going to
don't
find
need
out.
to be going there.
no.
Well,
Just leave
so
it alone.
After we did that, friend of the show, my dad, the infamous boomer, called me and said, you just did something on the Bermuda Triangle. You should look up Gene Holloway. So keep that in mind, because then I did look up Gene Holloway. And I think that the Tampa Bay Times said it best when they said, he was a skydiving, bear and big cat wrestling, rags to riches man who built one of the most profitable restaurants in the nation, ran for president, faked his death, and was arrested in Canada.
That's a full life right there.
How do you
Not
And you've
know
never
about this
heard of
man.
him.
What a
How do we
legend.
not know about him, and he also wore some badass fur coats.
Dude,
in
his
Florida.
outfit.
He was a stylish
Yeah,
man.
with his hats, wasn't he?
We'll
hot?
talk. Put a pin in that. Put a
Okay.
pin in that
I'm
thought.
thinking how hot. I mean, I know he was hot in Tampa.
Baby, you got to do it for the style.
Okay, I'm with that.
It's not about. It's not about the heat anymore. Obviously, look at you.
Look at this. Look
at me. Look at me.
Yes.
So yeah, get ready, because what I liked about this story, as someone who I've lived in Tampa my whole life, but you know, things happen and you just like live your life and you're driving by all these places, and this story hits on like Tampa locations and things that I never would have thought to put in this context, and now here we are, kind of like Tiger King having that whole Nebraska segment in Netflix, and you're
know,
like, we all knew.
Yes,
girl,
yes.
you were not just walking along,
No.
jogging Nebraska.
No.
We know what's up.
I know what you were up to.
I also want to say that for this, I mostly relied on really good articles from the Tampa Bay Times and from Cigar City magazine, which I
Oh yeah, I
found
know Cigar City.
yeah, I found a copy of it, but I couldn't actually find the physical part of it. But just know that there's been so much reporting on this guy.
Yeah.
A lot of it goes back, so you do have to rifle a little bit, but when you find it, like the details about this man's life are absolutely batshit crazy.
Gene Holloway.
So who was he? This Gene Holloway man. Well, he was born in Sulphur Springs in 1937. So that would put him at around 86 years old today.
He's that old now?
He was born in 1937.
Wow.
That's
and
what,
he's still...
that's what my calculator
say
said.
it.
This man, like, I want to know what he's eating. Like, can I have some of that? Like,
I don't think he really does too much to stay alive either. I mean, I think he kind of lives crazy,
Lord.
honestly.
Seriously.
Have you guys been to the Hemingway Museum in Key West?
Oh, I wish.
Oh, you gotta go. You learn
I
about
know.
his life.
I know.
And you're like, what in the hell? Like, how did these people live? Like, I walk outside, my back hurts. You know what I
think
mean?
it's the hard liquor. I think it like preserves
Seriously.
the inside.
Those
I'm
men and their
serious.
whiskey, they'll have like a blown out back and they're like, give me a thing of whiskey.
Yeah.
I'll get the lawn work done in an hour. And you're just like, Jesus, Gerald, all right.
The
Like,
insides are pickled. I'm telling you. They're embalmed walking around. I'm serious.
That's the secret.
That's the secret.
That's
Hard
Gene's
liquor.
secret.
So yeah, Gene was actually, he had a hard life from the time he was born. So his dad was a merchant marine, wasn't around. He actually grew up for a while in a child's home here in Ballast Point.
Oh, no way.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he was in like a
crazy.
foster situation because his dad was away,
Okay.
serving in World War II. At one point, like his entire family was like living in a bus, and they like couldn't afford shoes. Like it was that kind of situation. But you know, he did what he could. He grew up. He got married. Okay, remember that. And then he enlisted in the Navy, and he went off to do Navy man things. One of which was being stationed in Antarctica and apparently climbing the second largest volcano in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was fake. I said, this is not true.
I would be so angry if I joined the Navy and they're like, I'd be like Hawaii, please send me to Hawaii, and then they'd be like Antarctica. I'd be like, I'm just gonna. Where's the Skyway Bridge? Like,
And not only that, but we need you to climb a volcano while you're there.
In Antarctica.
Yeah,
a volcano in Antarctica.
Apparently they have those, and I actually found newspaper
saw that
clippings
one.
of this happening.
That was real.
see, the volcano climbing, like I've climbed a volcano before, and it was really fun.
Yeah,
but like
okay.
when you add like 100 degrees,
Arctic.
like negative 100 degrees, like I'm not born
Arctic
for the cold.
conditions. A guy from Florida, and he climbed the
apparently
volcano.
He did well, and he bragged about it. So go, Gene.
Yeah, there was a story about it, so that really happened.
So he came back, and he was a junk collector for a while. So he was just like salvaging stuff and then reselling it. And then he got a job at this place called Food Enterprises, which was a brokerage company, which we fought about whether or not this matters, but I think it does.
He basically, go ahead. I'm going to let
Okay.
you rock.
So basically, a brokerage company helps restaurants buy the stuff they need. So food and equipment.
Is it kind of like U.S. Foods or like Goya?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You can buy stuff and like, but everything like
The
tables,
equipment,
chairs,
everything to get the
okay.
restaurant started.
Gotcha.
right? And then like you
gotcha.
can source like maybe you could say seafood would be a
Okay.
good
But
example.
what restaurant were they trying to start?
Well, no, we're not there yet because you didn't read the story.
I did.
So Gene's working at Food Enterprises, and the owner of Food Enterprises was killed in a car crash. Gene wants to buy the brokerage because he thinks he can make it successful. And the son is like, no, we don't need you to buy it. So then Gene says basically, fuck you.
Okay.
And he starts his own brokerage company, which is Service Brokerage Company. They were very creative
Oh my
with the
God,
name.
these names.
Wow.
So complex.
He starts his
service.
Oh, yeah. So you know what you need.
I'm so impressed with the creativity.
They did not have
Oh,
any
Lord.
marketing minds. over
Nope,
there.
nope.
We're
They're
the
like,
Mad
service.
Men.
That works.
And you know what? I'm sure people hiring him were like, service. Yes, this makes hire him. Like I'm sure he got business just on that. So it was a huge success.
Yeah.
In 1968, he got his big break, so to speak. So there was this little restaurant that was started in Lakeland. You might have heard of it. It's called Red Lobster.
He started
Of
Red
course.
Lobster.
He didn't start Red Lobster,
He
but
did.
Gene was hired. His company was hired as their food broker. So he helped them expand from the one location in Lakeland to 175 locations.
So are you telling me that Gene is the mastermind
Yes.
of the Cheddar Bay biscuit?
He may well be.
Yes.
Oh,
He very
and
well
endless
may be.
shrimp.
Lord. Lord.
I'm telling you right now,
I'm
that's,
sure
that's the biggest thing about Gene
the
Holloway.
endless shrimp
Seriously.
is both.
That's a
is
contribution
genius.
to society right there.
Listen to what he did. I went to Red Lobster for my prom date.
You know what's so
restaurant,
smart?
which
Is like when
that's kind of embarrassing, but I did. It was a thing.
I used to beg
love
my
that.
grandmother to take
Take
me
you
to
to
Red
Red
Lobster. She was like, I would be like 5 years old, and she'd be like, "You want to go to Wendy's or like where you want to go?" I'd be like, "Red Lobster. I want
love
crab
it.
legs."
I love it. I love it.
What's crazy about that is like when you remember that Gene was like this amazing salesman, because like he was literally selling junk, and now he's selling like restaurant stuff and opening them across the country. And like when you look at a Red Lobster, it does make sense. Why would you like? How did he sell them carpet for a seafood restaurant? He was just that good. He's
I
just
didn't
that.
think about that.
Exactly. Like, why would you put that there?
But it
a
makes
good
it
salesman.
cozy.
And he
mean,
can
it's
sell carpet,
genius.
and he can sell. Anyway,
Damn, he's smart.
so he makes tons of money. So much so, in fact, that General Mills decides to buy his company, service brokerage company. And he makes millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So by the 1973, Gene was 36, and he was a self-made, like, multimillionaire after being this guy who had like grown up in Foster
bus.
and like
That's
lived in a
crazy.
bus. Yeah.
He got it out of the mud for real.
So while his work was a booming success, his love life was less so. Potentially, you would say. So during that time, while all
Yeah.
that's going on, remember he got married when he went to go join the Navy?
Yeah.
Okay, so he got divorced, he got remarried, he got divorced, he got remarried, and then he got divorced again.
How many? What is it now? 3 or 4?
So he's married,
gosh.
and then he got divorced,
Uh-huh.
and then he got remarried, and then he got divorced, he got remarried, and then he got divorced again.
Brother, maybe just live the single life,
I
my
was
boy.
about to say, how are
I
you doing that all in how many years?
You know what's crazy is like Hemingway's a lot like this too, because I'm like walking around his house and I'm like, stop marrying them.
Why
Just
do you
stop
keep marrying them?
yes, like
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
like no woman after like your 4th failed marriage. I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like no
insane.
every woman's gonna be like, sir, you're
Yeah.
kind of a walking red
4
flag.
marriages
Like,
is kind of going nuts.
I mean,
don't
but if
even
he's
mean
a
no harm.
multi-millionaire, I don't even care how many marriages, as long as they're alive. Look, he's getting divorced. He's not burying them, so I'm in.
No, but think about the money, the alimony that he has to
That's what
pay.
for
Like,
you,
I
sir.
mean, come
For
on
you.
now.
Like, I'm not for this red pill
Good
community,
Lord.
but he's the guy who
Yeah,
needed
like,
it.
he's the one that needs to
Yes,
take the pill.
yes.
There's too many marriages
Oh my
with all
gosh.
that money. That's
better be having them
craziness.
sign prenups.
Yeah.
Like,
And you know he wasn't. It was
probably
the
didn't.
70s.
Oh, no.
They
They
didn't
weren't
even know
doing
what that
that.
was.
Yeah, they
so
weren't doing that.
in the mid 1970s, Gene gets married to Debbie Ponton, who was a Miss Tampa. So kind of a big deal. At the wedding, he actually skydived to their outdoor altar on the shores of Lake Hollingsworth, which
Where is that?
it's like
I
north.
don't know where that is.
Is that in Lakeland?
I believe it's near Lakeland. Yeah, because he
Okay.
had his Tudor mansion in Lakeland, I believe.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Lakeland of all places.
Not the
It's
Tudor
like-
mansion.
Obviously, guys.
Architecture goes so well.
So yeah, and they were that couple. They had like sports cars and fancy clothes and lavish parties, and like they collected antiques. And what's like the other thing that you collect when you are in the 1970s and you're like obscenely rich and living in Florida? Exotic animals.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really need to understand. What is it about big cats and Floridians?
Okay, can I tell you something real quick? I'm so sorry, Sam.
Yes.
When I was
I
a
need to
child,
understand.
my favorite animal was a tiger. I don't know
Oh,
why.
I mean, that's pretty
But what I'm
normal,
saying is, like,
Elizabeth.
if I had multi-million dollars right now,
you would get a tiger.
I can't say that I would because I think
Okay.
it is illegal, but
This
would I get a
city of
tiger?
Floridianness in you is just
That's-
will not be denied. You have to have a tiger.
That's such a thing though, because I feel like every man that I've ever dated, including my boyfriend,
What?
it's like if you ever ask any dude like, oh hey, if you could have like any animal that you wanted, what would you have? I swear to God, try it. Go up to
A
strangers,
tiger?
like strangers that are like this age.
Okay.
Like if you go up to them and you're like, what animal would you have? They'd be like, I want a tiger or a lion.
A lion. I was thinking a lion.
No,
It's always
I
the
mean,
big
Mine like a
cats.
panther too.
That's true.
But it's
Who
not
was that
just
boxer?
men. It's women too. Who?
That boxer had tiger.
Oh, Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
And the-
yes.
Maybe that's where it
He
came
did.
from. I don't know.
It's women too.
yeah,
Like,
like I just said.
there was.
But I
wasn't
also
there
think
like a
about the Roman Empire a lot, so I don't know. I might be a little off.
No, it's
Yeah.
a thing. I feel like it's something about here, but you're right because Mike Tyson wasn't here. So I don't know what it is, but people when they get a lot of money, they want a big scary animal.
And you know what? I actually know a good amount of like Tampa women that make a lot of money, and they get those cats that are like
servals?
Yes, the servals.
The servals,
and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't get it. Like, I mean, yeah, they're pretty, but like, I don't want a cat that can like bite me in my sleep or like
Why
eat
do
anything.
You want a
No,
big
and they're
cat?
actually kind of dangerous because they hunt and shit.
Yeah,
And like you gotta keep them entertained, or else like
they
you
would
become the prey.
right. And they would probably like, I have a Chihuahua. They would eat the Chihuahua.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
100% definitely not.
Meanwhile-
yeah, that's craziness.
No, my cat's enough.
Yeah, but we have to figure out the correlation between wealth and like cats that can eat you, bite your head off in your sleep. I just don't understand.
You know
it.
what
I don't
else
want
people
that.
want is like monkeys. Monkeys. I hate this monkey shit.
There are. You guys don't even understand.
I don't like
there are
monkeys.
quite
No.
a few people living in your neighborhoods
Right now.
right now.
In their
You don't
homes.
even know this.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not going into my old reporter war stories, but I will just tell you quickly. There was one of the first stories I covered here was a lady who had a monkey that got out.
Oh yeah.
There are people in the neighborhoods with monkeys and lions
Well, don't they
and all kind of
say
stuff
Monkey Island.
in their house.
Yeah, don't they say that that's why there's like wild monkeys now in
Yeah,
Miami?
yeah.
Because there's like so many people that have had
There's
monkeys.
one
And they
here.
get
And they
out.
just.
Yeah, there is one here.
I'm not even surprised.
There's
like,
one here, Monkey Island.
Yes, I think I've heard of Monkey
Yeah,
Island.
and they're
No,
there.
just-
And there was that woman. You should cover this too. There was that woman when I was in like middle school, so probably I guess like 2011, 2012, who got her face
Yeah.
I
ripped
remember
off
that.
from
Yeah.
a monkey. And like
Yes.
I was just
That's
like,
scary.
why? It was a full chimpanzee. Why do you own that?
Why?
I'm
That is
trying
not
to
your
ask
friend.
you.
That is not your. I think actually I'm like 4. See, I saw Planet of
You're
the
for a
Apes
tiger,
too young.
but not a monkey.
Yeah. I saw Planet of the Apes at too young an age, and I just
see.
don't trust monkeys. I think we should get rid of them before they uprise.
Like monkeys also like listen, if you own a monkey, it poops nonstop all the time everywhere. Like
an
anybody
animal.
who has
It's
them, if you look on TikTok, all the videos of people with monkeys, they have diapers on because they never stop
Gross.
pooping.
That
Like
one who ripped her face
can't.
off had a
They're
diaper
actually-
on.
and they're
Dude.
quite smart too. They freak me out because they just look like people too much. I don't like it.
I don't trust a
Yeah.
lot of animals
Yeah,
with
with thumbs. I agree. But anyway, I
Something
just,
about
just
that.
an aside, money, people want scary animals. I
Well,
don't get it.
And
it's
Gene
weird.
did too. Gene was not. Gene was part of this rule, not the exception. So he had his own cats. But the thing was, at this point, Holloway knew that Red Lobster was earning close to like $1 million a year, which I should have done the math for inflation, but that's a lot of money in the
I want to go to
1970s.
Red Lobster. I've been thinking
might
about
have to go.
Red Lobster a lot more lately. I'm sorry. I
'Cause
know
of
I
this.
keep taking us
field
off
trip,
track.
field trip to Red Lobster.
It keeps coming back into the lexicon. Like they have these margaritas now, and they have like people keep talking about Red Lobster more, and it's making me want to go. But remember, they fell off. They weren't that good for a while. I wonder if they're good again. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't know.
Sorry.
But I can tell you that Gene was like, I can do better than Red Lobster. He had already known how to
that's right,
source
Gene.
all of their seafood and all of the stuff that they had. And he was like, I could do it better. So he opened 2 restaurants in the late 1970s, one in Lakeland and one in Tampa. Both were named Seawolf after the Jack London book about a hunting expedition in the Bering Sea,
That
which
name is so off the chain.
It's so
wild as hell.
It is.
Seawolf.
I feel like the name makes you think like, okay, nobody is going to come to this restaurant unless they're in a fur coat. Like it's
Well,
just
I
like
agree. You have to have
the
a fur
sea wolf.
coat.
What
And
foreshadowing?
gold.
What foreshadowing? So the Lakeland Seawolf was popular. It was, but it was Tampa the Tampa one that was really like the crown jewel. It was located near Busch Gardens, and it's no longer there
Yeah.
anymore. But
Do we know where it was? I was trying to
I know.
picture it.
I'm curious
I
to
don't
know
the
where that would
I
be.
location.
couldn't find the actual location. I think because we'll talk about what happened to it.
Okay.
But so the original Seawolf in Tampa could seat 485 people.
That's huge.
Which is a lot. I don't actually know how many a normal restaurant can fit, but I think
Not
that's
400.
no.
not close to 500.
Jason, how many people can a normal restaurant fit? I mean, but like,
Let's
what's
say a big
typical?
one.
Like 200?
like a
Yeah,
200's a
200.
decent
That's
size,
like
he
a
says.
big restaurant.
So yeah, and this was like double that easily. And you would think that would make it easy to like get seats, but it actually was the opposite. So on weekends, it was like they'd have an hour, 2 hour long wait list just trying to get in to get a seat at the Seawolf.
That's crazy.
You know that was a scene. In
Uh-huh.
the 70s in Tampa,
Well, yeah.
that was a scene.
And the
Yeah.
reason it was a scene was like beyond its prime location being right next to Busch Gardens, it also had like this exotic, extravagant decor. And apparently it had good
sounded
food.
Crazy.
Apparently it had good food. Okay, that's what they say. But by all of this put together, made it in 1979. It was the 8th highest grossing restaurant in the United States.
Holy cow.
With a revenue of $5 million, which in 1979 would have been like a
crazy.
fuck ton of money now.
Oh, yeah.
Largest grossing restaurant in the country?
In the United States of America.
Was here?
By Busch Gardens. Like, what? The contrast of like then and now. I'm like,
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that area must have been different then. Was
Yeah.
this before Busch Gardens, I wonder?
No, it was.
I mean, but was Busch Gardens built at that time? I don't know how old
It might have
Busch
been pretty
Gardens
new.
is.
It might have been
that
new.
might have helped the restaurant
Maybe
a little
it
bit.
did. Maybe
I mean,
it
I
did.
don't like all the development that you see there now would not have been there. But
Yeah.
some stuff would have been,
Yeah,
right?
USF was there
Right,
nearby. So
exactly.
there had to be like hotels or something around there.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we talked a little about the decor. It was insane. This restaurant, I wish that I could go. Like, some people ask me, like, oh, if you could go back in a time machine, like, where would you go? And the answer is, like, nowhere, because it's worse for me then than it is now.
100%.
But if I had to answer, it used to be, like, I don't know. I used to think some other
The
time.
Roman Empire.
No.
Yeah,
No,
not
not
a good one
safe.
either.
But now I'm like, I need to go to the Seawolf. So apparently, so you would pull in, right, to the parking lot, and then a wagon pulled by Clydesdales would take you from the parking lot to the restaurant. That is in itself an
That's
attraction.
why it took so long for people to leave and get a seat.
Seriously, no wonder but the
fucking
wait was
horse.
long.
Hey, but that's a way to pass the time when you've got people
agree.
ready to take
I
a
agree.
wagon ride around the parking lot in a fucking Clydesdale.
So is it like
Lord.
it's like a what do you call those things? A horse-drawn carriage?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah, just little wagons pulling you around. Like
That's very interesting.
Elaborate.
So it had 4 dining rooms, and each had a theme. So there was the captain's room, which was nautical themed, the patio room, the garden room, and the Tiffany room. The Tiffany room, well, Holloway at the time owned the largest collection of Tiffany stained glass in the entire world. So you can imagine what the Tiffany room looked like.
That's insane.
It's insane.
That's insane.
The Teddy Roosevelt room,
I like the sound of that.
what had stuffed animals.
Oh,
so
no,
like
that's
it
gross.
had
Never mind.
I don't want that. Seafood, gross.
Like imagining the smell of
yeah,
like
old teddy bears.
and then just like a giant. It had a 10-foot Kodiak bear that would just like
so it was
watch
kinda
you
like a
eat.
lodge room.
There was-
like a lodge.
Yeah, exactly. There was a
lot of
mountain goat
vibes.
in a glass case, a moose, and then a mountain lion that was leaping at a bunch of dead deer, like a mounted deer.
This place sounds crazy.
And then on the wall there was like heads of elk and stuff.
Yeah, that was like
That's one room.
Yeah.
In the patio room, you would sit in like white wicker chairs, so like patio, and you would look out the window, and there was like a garden, and it had like peahens and peacocks. So
Yeah.
that was going on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was Holloway, right? Like he was a big attraction in and of himself. He was dressed as this like kind of urban cowboy guy, like fur coats.
That's a vibe.
Yeah, it was
I
a
liked
vibe.
his hats.
And he was the main attraction. Like people wanted to like get a celebrity peek at this eccentric millionaire who owned this restaurant and had like this insane shit going on, you know?
Yeah.
And he knew how to get press. That
Yes,
was
he did.
something he was really good at too. So in 1980, he actually ran for president.
See, okay, I didn't understand that, but I literally think it was just for publicity.
It was.
I could see that. He was like, I opened my Red Lobster. I opened the Seawolf. What's next? Presidency? Check.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is now we would be worried.
He might win.
Honestly,
Now he
now
might win.
we would be like, well, we've had worse
I
candidates.
know. We would be like, well, wait a minute. What does he think
He is
about
really good at
the economy?
sourcing seafood, so I don't know why.
At least we've been humbled to the point of like, if he got to the presidency, we'd be like, instead of like, what the hell? We'd be like, well, we've had worse.
Yeah.
I mean, he could do it.
I mean,
possibly.
he treats his cats well.
Yeah. Animal lover.
Yeah, he ran for president in 1980. He dropped out only after a few months. The only reason he really ran, according to one of his friends, who managed the campaign, was to just keep him in the headlines because
Yeah.
in town, you know, everyone's going to talk about him.
You know what about him I noticed is that he was kind of like a reality star before reality
yeah.
stars.
Yes.
Everything he was doing was like a blueprint for what people do now.
Yeah.
Like that kept, that was a theme whenever I was reading about
Which is
him.
why it should be a crime that we don't talk about him more.
Not yet. We'll see what happens.
And when all else failed and there was no recent press, he would bring out his cats. So he owned at least 3 tigers, a jaguar, and a cougar, and a leopard.
Good Lord, that's a lot of animals.
Cougar.
Where did he buy these cats? Great question, guys.
I never
That's a
thought
good
about
question.
I constantly think about this.
Why I literally never
Yeah, they
thought
really
about
don't have
that.
like the dark web in the 70s.
Wait, where are
Right.
you getting the cats?
Right?
From zoos?
I think about that today.
Yeah.
Even the dark web, like how are you going to ship that thing? Is it in like a Wayfair
don't
box?
even
Like
know.
how does it get to me?
Literally, it's in your
2
Wayfair
deliveries.
sofa. Like,
You need 2 deliveries for this.
Don't sit on that couch.
do not sit on the left cushion, you guys,
Yeah.
whatever you do.
Wait until you get home, guys.
You might lose a butt cheek.
The assembly included.
So at least 2 of his tigers and the cougar from a newspaper clipping that I found were bought by Holloway from the Laurie Park Zoo, which is now Zoo Tampa.
Oh, no.
That's crazy.
And they were declawed.
no.
So-
Kind of not right.
That's
It's not
sad.
right, but it kind of makes sense why he would wrestle with them at his restaurant. So you could go to the restaurant and just show up,
So-
and this man is wrestling a tiger in a fur coat.
That is nuts.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Zoos used to sell the animals to private citizens?
I
'Cause
feel
kinda
like-
think that's against the law right now.
I feel like even back then, that had to have been like Gene or like one of Gene's persons like going up to them and being like, hey, we'll give you like
Yeah.
a quarter
That's a
mil.
business.
Trying to get rid of?
Right?
Yeah.
if you're
that's
worried-
very weird. Maybe they still do it. We don't know.
Listen, you never know. Maybe
If
they
it's a
just cover their
for-profit,
trails.
They're not a nonprofit, are they?
They are.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
I don't know if all zoos are.
No, they're not.
interesting.
Not all of them. But
That's interesting.
I think they usually now, there's like rules
Yeah.
about the wildlife and stuff where like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
we
that
didn't
makes
have
sense.
before.
That shit is crazy. He went and bought
Wild.
that from the Lowry Park Zoo.
He was like, yeah, here's a millie. Give me a tiger.
And he declawed
Dude.
them.
Well, I don't know. You have
It
to
had
remember.
to be for him to be wrestling with them
Well, no, they were declawed,
Yeah.
but they might have been declawed like
at
by the zoo. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know.
Times
Yeah.
were
I
also
don't know what
different.
back
Times
They
were
might have
super
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But I will say they probably had a better life with Holloway than they did at the zoo.
I would agree.
Probably.
I would
because they
agree.
lived on his 40-acre Thonotosassa ranch in Penn.
40 acres,
Good
y'all.
Lord.
40 acres.
That's
I'm
a
sorry,
lot of
that
land.
stopped me. I was like, what? 40
He
acres.
owned Thonotosassa basically.
I was going to say, how big is
Seriously.
Thonotosassa?
40 acres.
Yeah, 41 acres.
And a mule.
The rest of the
I don't
town
know.
lived
Yes.
on the 1 acre. Go over there. Go
right,
over there.
Right.
We don't go over there. That's where Gene's tigers are.
We stay
So-
right here.
They had a ranch with the pens. They each had their own swimming pool. It actually was one giant swimming pool that had the fence go down the middle, which I feel like is like a weird way to do that and also super trippy. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do
So
that?
the humans on one side, the cats on the other?
No, the cats shared the giant swimming pool. So they could, and one of the girl cat liked, I think the girl cat's name was Calcutta, liked the pool more than the boy cat. I also read that in the paper. He also would give them television and stereo.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's so funny.
So they had giant TVs to watch, which my cat loves TV,
Really?
but these cats apparently did not. But they really liked.
They did not.
They thought it was boring, but they loved the stereo, and it would like calm them, and they would go to sleep.
Oh, that's so
Interesting.
cute. Okay,
I like
so he
when
was.
animals like TV. That's funny to me.
Yeah, he was a good pet dad.
He was fine. He was. I mean, you know, in the grand scheme, like look.
He was fine, y'all.
Listen,
Really? He was
listen.
fine.
If you
This is all fine. This is
high
fine.
here.
the bar, this is Florida. The bar is on the ground.
It's men.
It's in
This is a Florida man. The bar is like
He was actually very
subterranean.
reputable for the Florida man.
Bro,
at that time.
right?
They've gone much
Oh
lower.
yeah.
I'm about to put on a tiger suit and go. I want my own pool. Shit, a pool and TV.
You think Gene
Goddamn.
can give you a better life than you have now?
Lord.
Shit,
I'm
I'll
telling
wrestle
you.
Gene in the parking lot. That's fine. Rawr.
I hate you being a Gene animal. That is insane.
Oh man.
So yeah, he would wrestle and play with them in commercials and in television news segments. He'd bring them over to the restaurant, and that was part of the draw too. Is like you kind of want
Stay in
not
the
only
news.
you didn't
Well,
want to
yeah,
just
for
see
real.
Gene, you also wanted a chance to like see
Well, it's
one
a
of the cats.
spectacle.
Exactly.
They don't do that anymore.
No,
He'd bring him on
they
like
don't.
leashes to his office. There's like a whole picture for the news with like him sitting there, and then it's like that cougar.
You know who I imagine Gene would be today? Like if he was like in his prime today?
Definitely not Joe Exotic.
He would be one of those Florida men that drive like the most lifted truck with like the ball hanging on the balls hanging on the back.
Yeah, he's a little redneckish, but
he-
fancy.
He would have like his fur coat, the balls on the back of his truck that's like obnoxiously lifted, and then he would walk out.
$100,000.
Yes!
or more.
And he would walk
For a
out with
pickup.
And he also has like a Ferrari that he brings to the car shows at Armature
Of
Works.
course, yes,
For some,
of
and-
course.
But it's like it's wrapped in tiger print.
And he would like bring out his cat and be like, "Oh, hello there," just casual.
No, the
I
cat's
can
just
see
in
that.
the car, and people walk by and
Peeking
fuck, is
out.
that
I'm dead.
Like walking around
so yeah.
the front seat.
a tiger? Sometimes they'd be let loose in the restaurants in closed
See,
gardens.
now I'm not doing that.
So like you remember the patio garden room? That room had a view. I mean, I think all rooms did, but that room was like specifically to give you a view of the garden. And on one occasion, a pigeon flew inside the garden and got too close to a tiger. And people at the restaurant watched as the tiger hunted and killed the pigeon.
While they ate their
You're just
shrimp
like,
scampi.
yeah, you're just eating like, you know, your unlimited shrimp, and you're just watching a tiger, like Nat Geo on it.
Imagine like being on a date and being like, "So how's your drink, babe? Oh God.
If that were
Pigeon
now,
just got eaten.
that would be the
Right,
only.
right?
That'd be the only Hinge date I want to go on.
I was gonna say
Bring
this
me
is
to
kind of
Seawolf.
dates y'all
Yeah.
need to be going on
Yeah.
now to stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting.
If a man is not in a fursuit with a tiger on a leash, I don't want to be at that restaurant.
Amen."
Back.
He once held a carnival in his Tampa restaurant parking lot.
Yeah.
So people could go and they could see the cats and stuff, and there were rides and live entertainment.
fun.
But the main event was
We
Gene.
haven't even gotten to the main event.
No, the main event of this carnival that he had was him wrestling a bear. Cocaine is a hell of a drug, guys. I gotta say.
Good Lord.
There's just absolutely no way. So, like I said, in 1979, and generated $5 million. It was the 8th largest restaurant
That's
in the United
crazy.
States. And the following year, he sold the Lakeland Seawolf to Focus on Tampa. But the
Who really
actual,
sold it to?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I wonder.
You know what?
I wonder if it. Like, how long did it go? You know what I mean?
Right?
yeah, I saw things on that, but there's so much here that I did not
I'm
even
sorry.
look into.
Keep going.
So you might be thinking to yourself, like, he's crazy, but he's not like that crazy. But we haven't really gotten to the story of Gene Holloway yet.
In the hell we haven't.
Because the thing was that Gene was ultra successful. He was ultra eccentric, but he was also ultra into debt. And the debt just kept coming.
It kind of comes with the territory, right?
Yes.
Like, how often do you meet or encounter like extremely over the top, like super successful, you know, people that don't have like a bunch of debt and about to file bankruptcy or jump off a bridge because of it?
Well, and I feel like that's so often with people, like when you hear about stories like this, when they go from having like absolutely nothing, being really like
Yes.
down and out, and then they come into a lot of money very quickly. And it's like they don't know how to there's something inside of them that they can't fill. You know what I mean? And they just keep buying
acquiring.
That's a good point. And I also think, in the words of another Tiger King, like, once you buy the tiger, you can't financially recover.
You can't.
And then also, it feels like tigers are like kind of like tattoos. Like, once you get one,
Yes.
you need more.
I've never
Why
met
is
anybody
that?
that just has
Has
one
one
tiger.
tiger. It's like-
That's true.
It's always like the tiger and the cougar and the like, they're, you know.
The lion. Then we breed the lion and the tiger. We have a
liger.
liger.
So,
Ligers are actually scary as fuck. I'm sorry. I do not like ligers. They scare me.
well,
They're
they
so
just
cool
shouldn't.
looking.
What's wrong about it?
They are very cool looking.
I don't
They
like
shouldn't
the way it
exist.
looks.
That's why you have that reaction.
Oh, okay.
Because they should not exist. They are from animals that live on two completely different continents.
Yeah, it's also imagining like those two animals like having a child. It's like the aggression problems.
I know.
But I also
Bring them
think that when I
together.
see like a Chihuahua Doberman mix, and I'm like, how did y'all do this?
Yes,
I don't
Never
like
seen
this.
that.
Time.
That sounds insane.
I don't like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Gene was, you know, it sounds like he was kind of like this eccentric, fun guy, right? But, you know, things weren't maybe as always on the up and up as you would expect.
Yeah.
So he's falling into debt. He's working on this restaurant, and the pressure is on. So this was a fun story that I thought was just like, what the fuck? This is the most 70s stories I've ever fucking heard in my life. Because I could see someone telling me this, and I'd look at them and be like, are you, like, be fucking for, like, what? Okay, so a guy who worked with Holiday recounted this to the Tampa Bay Times. So I'm going to take it as
Face
being
value.
for face value,
Yeah.
So at one point at his restaurant during this time when it's like really successful, but he's also really into debt, Holloway meets two 18-year-old women at Tampa Seawolf and wants to take them to a drag show. But
As in the cars or the performers?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would imagine the cars.
Also, is he married at this point?
He is.
Okay.
Still married
He
to
is
the-
still
to the
married at
beauty
this
queen.
point. Yeah.
And the girls are coming to the restaurant, 18.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so he wants to take them to a drag show. The other guy didn't think this was appropriate. You know, they're young girls.
Good for him.
So he takes the ladies to his car, but Gene was pissed. So as this guy's pulling away with these two women to like take them back home, Holloway allegedly fired 6 shots into this guy's car.
It's called cocaine.
So that's a hell of a drug.
Yes.
So this guy says, he quotes, this is a quote from Tampa Bay Times,
Dude.
"No one was hurt, but we could have been killed." Yeah, no shit. And then he says he did not file charges and quote, "We made amends, but that was the end of our close friendship."
Brother, are you okay? Like, he just...
I'm not doing this podcast again with you if you shoot my car.
He
this
just
time.
tried
You're going
to
jail.
murder you,
Yeah,
my
you
boy.
went
No,
Like,
you're gonna call the cops on me if I shoot you?
I might.
If
Wow,
I
that's
shoot
so
at
rude.
you.
I might.
That seems excessive.
This
It
is
depends
wild.
on what mood I'm in. But you could very well get the cops called on you if you shoot at me.
Bro, that's kind of
Dude.
fucked, honestly. I can see why we
know.
wouldn't be close friends.
I love
still
how
do
his
the
friend.
show.
Yeah, I love how his friend is like, yeah, it kind of sucked in the moment, but like our friendship recovered, and, but we
mean,
just weren't as close after that. And it's like,
kind of see that.
So
dude, are
see
you
what I'm
okay?
saying?
Like, are you okay? We need to find you some different friends, my
Good
man.
friend
Like,
though that told him not to take those girls, and then also didn't call the police on him.
Exactly.
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, this is the most 70s shit ever. You almost
Yeah, that's
Seriously.
a crazy 70s
Yeah.
story. That's what
Yeah.
people did in the 70s. Yeah.
So that happened. And then in 1981, Holloway's wife, who's Debbie Ponton,
Pont?
Debbie Pontoon.
right. Debbie the boat.
Is her name Pont?
It's Ponton. Ponton.
Oh, Ponton.
I would say it is. I don't know.
Ponton.
She was Ponton. She filed for divorce in 1981.
Yeah, it's
I can't imagine
I
why.
don't blame her.
Yeah.
I don't blame her.
I mean, I don't know, you know?
If I was dating a man, if I was married to a man, oh geez. If I was married to a man and he was like, hey baby, yeah, you can stay home and I'm just gonna go to the restaurant, pick up two 18-year-olds and bring them to the drag show. I'd be like, yeah, 24-hour divorce. I'll be going to Mexico doing one of those and coming back, and we're gonna be done.
Got tired after like the 4th time of that. She was like, okay, this is I mean, it probably was like 4. It was probably 4.
I mean, okay, look,
She drew
he
the line at
owns
4.
tigers.
I
Like,
know.
What else do I need to say here?
I would be training those tigers every
I
time he
would-
left the house. I'd
I
be
would have
like,
been like, you shot a person's car 6 times. That's why I have to
I don't think
divorce
she-
you.
Yes!
You're going
She
crazy.
did not know that.
unhinged.
Debbie read that at the same time I did. You know she did not know that story.
I don't
This
know.
guy who did not call the cops did not tell his wife.
I think he probably told Debbie he's over here. She shot up my car last night,
Dude.
But, so he's gonna come home crazy. That's the kind of friend that guy is.
No, he
he's gonna
probably
call
called
your
him.
wife, call his wife, and be like, he's in here shooting up my car.
Yes.
So you know what to expect when he gets home.
The fact that this man is still alive at like 87, and he, like, this is just somebody who has had no discipline from anyone else since like a young age. I feel like he's just been like he went from having nothing to having everything
Every
in
single
such a
thing.
short time period, and then he's like, yes, I can own as many tigers as I want. Perfect. I can shoot at any kind, like with little, and with any repercussions, even better. And you're just like, oh my god.
Like, too, I didn't even, like, I don't know why in my head I hadn't thought yet that, like, of course the guy who's an urban cowboy who, like, wrestles bears and, like, owns tigers didn't have a piece on him at all times.
oh, he's always
Oh,
packing, baby.
100%.
Like, it makes sense now.
He got
but-
enemies. He got all kind of stuff coming at him. He's got wild animals around. He has a lot of guns. He's probably got like 2 guns. on
I
him.
googled a picture of him, and he's got like the little dog tags and like a fur jacket and like the glasses, and I could just imagine him being like, "Yeah, of course, I'm always packing, baby."
Oh,
Just like,
He's the guy that pulls it out to eat a shrimp, and he's just like taking out slurping up crawdad heads, and he's got his piece there, and you're like, what am I in?
Gene is all about his amendment rights.
Jesus.
Yes.
So, like I said, in 1981, Debbie files for divorce.
Probably
the
about
next
time.
day, the next day, their ranch house burns to the ground.
Not that the No Sassa one.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not.
Well, we don't know. Investigators found evidence of arson, and Holloway was a suspect.
Like you said, he does what he wants, baby.
He does. And
This man is living a lawless life. The OG Florida
And it
man.
works.
And in the summer of 1981, Holloway took out a $16 million life insurance policy on himself.
$16 million?
On him in 1981.
Damn,
That's
a
a
lot
big old
of money.
policy.
And it listed his ex-wife as a beneficiary.
He was
Okay,
trying to
also-
be nice to her.
I feel like
So.
Yeah.
maybe the house burning down is a thing though, because I have, believe it or not, heard of like people that are married and then they go to divorce, and like this actually happened to my mom's neighbor.
What happened?
So this house that my mom lives to next to on this lake, it's like all the neighbors told her it was haunted, and she was like, I don't know about that, like you guys are crazy. Everybody that has moved in there has moved out within a year. And so the last people to move in, it's also on like sacred Indian burial ground. It's like a
everything
whole
in Florida.
Of course.
Yep, it's a whole thing. But this couple moved in, and one was a doctor and one was an attorney. They went to divorce,
They got
and
divorced.
I guess they couldn't like, it would have been so much money for them to pay for the settlement that they burned the whole house down.
And then they just got the insurance and split it or something like that.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That's quite a conundrum.
It makes
you know what I
sense to
mean?
me.
When you have that much involved, it's like,
Yeah.
especially with Gene. I mean, I could see why he might just like, I can't deal with it. Just burn it down. I'm not doing this. I don't know what to tell you. Just burn it down.
I mean,
Sounds on brand for Gene
yeah,
at this
it
point.
does. It does.
I would be-
Problem solved.
I can't say that I've never recommended we just burn the thing down.
Everything. Just
I
burn
agree.
it.
I agree.
Let's start over.
Yep.
People exercise that option enough anymore. People used to do that a lot.
Probably
They do.
because if you do that, the FBI will investigate you
There
for
is
fraud.
that thing.
Yeah, now we have like, like DNA and stuff like that. So
That's true.
it's a little
Cameras.
harder.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Just
probably
do
why
it in
died
Hillsborough
out.
County because that fire rescue
Even better, do it in
isn't gonna figure
Pasco.
out. There you go.
That's a good idea.
Or Polk, which is where Gene was. So he's under suspicion of arson. He takes out a new life insurance policy, $60 million. And I think you like true
wild.
crime.
Under
We all know what
suspicion.
that means. Some shit's about to go down.
Yeah.
If you look, I don't have a life insurance. If I get a life insurance policy, watch me. Help me out.
Especially for
Ask me a
16
question.
million. Don't even ask me to sign anything for that much. I don't want you to be the beneficiary. Well, I mean, maybe I do, but I'm nervous about that. Like
So-
anything over like a couple million or $1 million, I
Right.
feel like somebody's gonna be looking at us.
As they should.
Why?
So, because why would you?
Exactly.
Why do you need that?
Well, and it's also like that's such a common thing in true crime stories is like, and they always think they're so sly too, and it's always the husband being like, "Hey babe, can you just sign this paper real quick?"
Exactly.
And she's like, "Why are you taking out a second life insurance
Divorce.
policy on me?" And I'm like,
Divorce.
"Sandra, open your eyes.
I'm leaving. Yeah. No.
Leave, run, take your child, run away."
I'll be
ain't
like,
safe.
what do
Oh,
you want me
God.
to sign? Why are you getting this? We're
Like
fine.
sometimes I think like if I was in a horror movie, I would be the first person to die.
Why?
Because you know too
Because
much.
I do some dumb stuff. Like I'm that girl where like I'll go to like a farm and like I went to a farm with a couple friends like 1 or 2 years ago. We found this broken down house that looked creepy as hell, and I'm like, let's jump the
go
fence and go
inside.
in.
Yeah, no.
And
I see no
her
issue
boyfriend was Hispanic, and he was like, "See, this is why."
This
He was
is
like,
why.
"You are so painfully Caucasian that you're going to be the first to die in
This is what
any
happens.
situation."
Sam's
I'm like,
let's walk behind the barn that has a star on it with the circle around it. That looks
Pentagram.
cool. I know, I'm just saying.
I'm Hispanic. I would go in there.
See?
But
Just not following the rules.
it's just so tempting.
you're not catching me on life
probably
insurance.
would
I'll
go
tell
in
you
there,
that right
too.
now.
Listen.
You're going down first. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm not signing
They're
that.
gonna be
I
like, "Why
agree.
did you kill your husband?" I'll be like, "I don't know."
Yep.
Look, check his
It
life
was an
insurance.
accident. He tripped down the stairs.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I don't like those big policies.
So he gets this life insurance policy. His wife is now divorced from him. He's under investigation for arson, and in a lease purchase agreement, he hands over ownership of Tampa Sea Wolf to this other guy.
The friend he
who's
shot the car up?
No, he was actually an executive for Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup, but it doesn't matter. So,
Chicken noodle.
well, Campbell's Soup, whatever. That's what, look, I watch the commercials.
Chicken noodle division. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the deal was finalized on September 2nd, 1981.
Okay.
Holloway was on a week-long pleasure cruise in the Keys with a group of friends at the time that the deal was signed. Okay?
Interesting.
On September 4th, 1981, the other passengers aboard the 44-foot trawler called the Coast Guard and claimed that Holloway had stepped out onto the deck for an breath of fresh air in the night, tripped and fell into the water.
Who were these people on the boat?
His boatmates later told investigators that they tried to save him by throwing him a lifeline, but it was all for naught because before he could get to the inner tube, he was swept away by the waters of the Gulf and was just never seen
They need
again.
to check those people's bank accounts the next day.
The Coast Guard searched for his body,
Exactly.
and the Coast Guard could not recover a body.
I will say when they say in like true crime stories that like they check the waters for a body and whatever, I always used to think that would be so hard that like the chances would be so low that they would ever find it, but they usually find it.
Do they
Like,
really?
Yeah, they have like
Yeah.
sonogram. Don't they have like
Sonar?
Yeah, they have sonar systems that like detect
It's
things
weird.
and like heat and stuff. But I don't know about in the early 80s.
That's true. That's a good point.
The technology now is very, very good. But
Yeah.
I don't know about back then.
That's true.
Well, his body was not recovered, and I'm trying to decide how I'm going to move into this next part.
Well,
so,
wait, can I ask you a question?
yes,
Like, so
that's the end of the story.
The cops said,
That's all that we know.
said, okay, you guys don't know what happened. All right, see ya.
Well, so they're out in the middle of the Gulf.
So sus. Like
yeah,
that's
like
so
you just
sus.
let that go.
What was more
They could have
sus?
killed him.
So reading the articles in the Tampa Bay Times, they were interviewing a lot of people that are like older, established, like Tampanians who've been here a while. They're like part of all this lore because they were like in city council and like part of all these people, like
Gotcha.
in that peer group of people in this time. And one of the guys was like, what was weird about that story is like Gene was known to be very fit,
Yeah.
very strong. He
I
was
mean,
in the Navy.
He climbed a volcano
Right.
in
Antarctica.
Antarctica.
Yeah.
Like
he was in the Navy. He would go boating. Like why would he not be able to like
Survive the
Right.
Gulf.
stay afloat
Well, no, they're
long
in Key
enough
West.
to get
Yeah.
an inner tube?
Yeah.
Like that
And-
doesn't make sense.
and typically if you own a boat, you're a pretty good swimmer.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
yeah.
You've jumped off the boat before.
Yeah. And not
Oh, for
been
sure.
swept away
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
currents.
Right.
Exactly. But that was the end of the story for Gene.
That's it.
Meanwhile, in Canada, cut to Niagara Falls.
Okay.
So a woman named Susan Wall is in a local bar in Niagara Falls. And she sees this guy who she says stood out like a sore thumb because he had a full-length suede coat with a fox fur collar, a cowboy hat with feathers, cowboy boots, and to quote, nobody dressed like that. No shit.
Has it like I don't it's 2023, ma'am, and I don't
anybody
think
dress like
anybody
that
I've
now?
never seen anyone dressed like
Maybe
that.
a
ever.
wrestler.
Maybe like Teddy Roosevelt himself was dressed like that.
guarantee you Gene probably had like a whole Pinterest board. Like if Pinterest would have been a thing back then, he probably would have been like, yeah,
All the animals.
this is all on my Pinterest.
yeah.
Like
He had an
spend
aesthetic.
hours curating the style.
He had a look.
He had an aesthetic.
He
He
did.
had he had a designer. So what's more, she said, was that he was tipping $20 in American money and buying drinks and rounds for strangers. This is
Balling out. He's
I
having
know.
fun.
He's one of those guys that's trying to flex. He's like, oh, you just gave me one drink. Here's a $30 tip,
Tampa.
ma'am. Ever heard of
Oh wait,
this
no, he didn't say
Seawolf?
that.
I've already
He
seen.
couldn't.
He's obvious, but he's not that obvious.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Have you ever had a
couldn't
Cheddar
say
Bay
that.
biscuit? Melts in your mouth.
This place needs some carpet.
I know where to get better seafood. So she decided to go on a date with him. And she was 26 at the time. He's in his late 30s.
Yeah.
And she goes on a few dates with a man by the name of James LaRue. Okay?
French.
So later she accompanies him to Toronto. Why, by God, I have no fucking clue. Like, why?
Because why not?
That's probably what Susan was thinking.
Is that hard to fathom?
You got to put yourself in her shoes. And also, like, think, like, when we were younger, like, we would do some stupid
I was never
stuff.
that young.
And they're in Niagara Falls. She not finding nobody like that.
And
like,
then Gene walks in and he's like all decked out, cowboy man, and he's got a vibe, and he's like, "Hey, come see my cats."
Yeah.
She's like, "Okay."
Makes perfect sense to me. Makes
So
perfect sense.
she goes with him to Toronto, where he gets hair plugs and his eyes done.
What does that even
now,
mean?
That's when I would have said, okay, this is nice, but I'm off the ride. That is not sexy.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm going home now.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
This was fun.
So the next day, James LaRue was arrested in a garage in the hotel they were staying at in Toronto. Now, apparently, according to Susan, what happened was that the woman that Holloway had been with before he hooked up with Susan had asked for weed. And so the limo driver, because there apparently was a limo driver in this story, procured for Holloway an entire shoebox full of weed.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
who is this limo driver and where, like, how does he know?
And what's his number?
Seriously, and what's his number? This limo driver was like, I got you.
You go get a shoebox.
A shoebox.
Yeah, like, could you imagine being like, yo, do you know where I could buy some weed? And someone's like, yes, boom. And they just like get a shoebox.
I just don't feel like that
Wild.
would be good.
And it's like,
No.
There's absolutely
It's definitely
no way.
Delta
And
8.
it's not shoebox with seeds. No.
And it's Canada, so like, was
Yeah.
it a boot box?
That's
Like,
what
how
I'm
big is the
saying.
shoebox?
It's
We're not
too
wearing
much.
ballet flats.
That's some Delta 8 right there.
Yeah,
like,
it's
that's
too
not
much
real.
weed
That's
for it
not
to be
real.
It's
good.
oregano. So
It's oregano.
apparently then Holloway didn't want the weed. They like got rid of it, but he wasn't aware that he was kind of already being followed potentially.
Okay.
And so when they got rid of it, did I say Holloway? LaRue, when they got rid of the weed, the ops caught him, and that's what happened.
And he got arrested.
And he was charged with possessing drugs with the intent to distribute.
Also, that's a bold move for that limo driver to be like if his boss was like, hey, like, go grab me a little bit of weed.
Yeah.
And he literally grabbed a full ass shoebox. Like, boy.
Why?
The
my
Canadian-
God.
So much.
The
Right?
Canadian police were like, obviously you're gonna sell. Like no one.
Yeah,
can
nobody
say-
carries around a
Like, it's
shoebox
not like
of
he's
weed.
going to be like Cheech and Chong sitting there for the next
Yeah,
12
and just,
hours.
like,
Like,
rolling joint after joint. No, that's
So-
odd.
This guy was identified as, plot twist, Gene Holloway.
It was Gene.
It was Gene the
no
whole time.
way.
What?
So
Shocker.
the story makes the news in the U.S. because
crazy.
it's not clear what the fuck happened here. Because the last thing anyone in Tampa heard is that
He
Gene
had
was on a
died.
cruise, he falls off, his body's gone, and now he's turning up with a new woman in Toronto and like a shoebox full of weed. What the fuck is this? So
Dude, this man is just living life.
no
Random.
one knew. What was interesting was like, why were the police following Holloway?
That sounds like some
That's
FBI
true.
shit right there.
Except,
Do you want an answer?
Yes.
why did they follow him all the
Why
way to
did they
Canada?
follow
Just let him die. He fell off the boat.
Right?
Just let him go. Y'all didn't question the people on the
No.
boat enough, so why do
You're
you
thinking
care?
too small. It turns out Holloway, the master in disguise himself, who clearly was not pulling any attention to him in Canada.
True.
He chose the name James LaRue, who apparently was the name of a wanted Canadian criminal on the lam.
it.
So James LaRue was already another guy who was also on the lam.
Now that
So
wasn't
the
smart.
odds of that,
Now that wasn't smart.
that is
I mean,
You know, they
hilarious.
always get messed up. It's like, there's
He
always...
was wearing a cowboy hat in Niagara Falls and paying in
He's
American
not
money.
exactly like being low key.
Right.
He wasn't.
And so this guy shows up, and then he's
Gosh.
stupid enough to pick a name that already the police are like, is that him?
Well, there was no internet. He couldn't Google. How did he... he just picked a name.
Well,
That is so
Just ended
funny.
up being
That
the
is
wrong
so
name.
funny.
so Gene comes back to America, and back in Tampa, it becomes like the biggest
I knew
story.
that was a crazy
to
story
ever-
when it
because
hit.
Oh,
It
he's
had to be.
resurrected.
Could you imagine, like, you would go down the street and, like, just newspaper, like,
Yeah.
everybody would be
Everybody
talking.
on the
Oh.
news, everybody be talking
Everything.
about that.
If he wasn't already the biggest celebrity in Tampa, he
Sure was
became
now,
the biggest
yeah.
one, right? And they called it the Ballad of Gene Holloway. Like everyone was obsessed with like this romantic tale of this guy who was like this weird cat man, and all of a sudden he's like dead, but now he's not. And did the wife know? That's what
He's
people.
back.
That's what people weren't sure. Like, who's in on this? Like, right?
Gene the cat daddy is back.
Did she cash in on the insurance policy?
Now that I'm not actually sure
Probably
because
not.
all of this like kind of it's still a mystery like why he faked his own death and like what his plan was like long term. Like cuz he had sold the Seawolf in this lease purchase agreement. He wasn't really gone for that long. The wife had the like you divorce someone and then you put this $16 million policy in their name. I think it was kind of like a hey,
Just
maybe
like a-
hush money or like, hey, sorry, I was an asshole. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
But you can't get. I would doubt she would be able to get the policy because his death was so mysterious. I mean, you have to have a death certificate. Like,
Well, I think if the Coast Guard doesn't find your body, they would probably just give you one.
I think it's a certain amount of time where,
Oh,
like, if
yeah.
you're not found, I think they legally
take a
can
while.
declare you deceased.
Like, also, it was
well, that was
81.
pretty smart
Who
then.
knows?
Yeah,
Things were probably
facts.
different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not really mad at this plan.
Well, it was the Ballad of Gene Holloway, and it was a certified hit as a song. Topped the charts. Bars were having like Gene Holloway lookalike contests where people would
Wow.
you'd show up in costume and like who was the best Gene Holloway.
Well, he's kind of like this player. Like, he's like this like ladies man that like has like swag. Like, he's got his own style. He has like, he's just crazy.
He's had like six wives at this point.
Yeah.
He
He's
was
had
the girl
like
in
6
Canada.
wives.
Yeah.
He's like a salt and pepper, like, and like he
He's a
has all
cat
these
daddy,
cats and all this
literally.
money. Like,
So he said he was innocent of what I'm.
Of what? What was his crime?
So they arrested him for insurance fraud.
Okay.
interesting.
He said
Okay.
he was innocent, but he pled guilty and then accepted a 5-year sentence.
Okay.
But he never sought to cash in on the insurance policy. So he probably could have
Interesting.
like actually
Well, it
won.
was, yeah.
But I guess like from what I read, it was kind of like the combination of what the fuck, and then also like we're gonna
Yeah.
get you on something, dude, and then
He just took the lowest
fraud.
thing.
Plus, remember he's still being investigated for arson.
Oh yeah,
Of his
that's true.
house.
He took a plea.
So he was acquitted on the charges of burning down his house. So I think it was probably a combination of like, bro,
Take something.
take
Yep.
something and just go
Be
to
done
fucking
with
prison.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Because you're
exactly.
too nimble. We can't deal with you.
Yeah.
Too much.
So Susan and Holloway actually got married in 1982.
Another one.
Another one. So she came
Oh,
to the
man.
States and married him.
And they divorced 8 years later.
Of course they
she got
did.
a bag. Well, I don't know. Did he have
it's a
any
long
money
time,
left?
though.
Yeah, it is.
So when he got out of jail or prison,
So he did time.
He did his 5 years.
All right.
He got out of prison and he opened 3 new Seawolf restaurants from
This
1985
man is unstoppable.
to
Seriously.
1990.
I actually like him.
None.
It's got tenacity.
He does.
Well, actually, and I take this back. So he wasn't in prison yet. I guess he was like waiting for the trial
Okay.
and like to serve
Yeah,
his
it
time.
takes
So
a
he
while.
opens these restaurants and then he goes
he
to
gets
prison.
credit,
Yeah,
even with
apparently.
all this over his head.
Dude, this is
Also, he was in
bananas.
debt. Like, don't forget. Like,
I
the
know.
reason he left was because he was millions
I
of
was
dollars
thinking
in
that
debt.
was why. Once
Dude.
you get to the end, that was kind of my
then
theory.
crazy.
Was that
He
was in so
opens
much debt.
3 new restaurants, one of which now people were trying to figure out like where exactly these were because there's
Yeah,
really
I
like
need to go
no,
there.
there's not many
Yeah.
like.
right? Like,
So one of
really
them was there on Henderson Boulevard. There is an Outback. That was one of the new Seawolves.
Oh, that's
I've been
crazy.
there.
Yeah, so it closed and then became the Outback.
wow.
What?
Allegedly.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, he opens these up between 1985 and 1990. He goes to prison. They all shudder while he's in prison.
Okay.
And then later he gets out and he moves to Odessa and he starts his career as a treasure hunter. And he just goes on his boat and hunts treasure on the coastline. And he is still alive
He's
today.
still alive.
He's still kicking.
Yeah, you could you
Wow.
could talk to this man.
I saw a picture of him. He didn't look bad.
And that's the Ballad
No.
of Gene Holloway.
I feel like, okay, you know the Red Bull guys that they just do like crazy shit all day.
Yeah,
They're just like,
jump off
yeah, let me
stuff
go like
and-
hang glide off of
yeah.
Everest and
Yeah.
like do
Yeah.
backflips and then like land on my head. Like, and it's just, that would be Gene.
That would be him if
Yes.
he was like 30
Modern
years
day.
younger. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know that this could exist now. Cause you know why? There's like influencers and stuff that come to my mind that they do crazy stuff like this, but the dirt always comes out. Like
Yes.
that
Well,
Just
one
like
Yes.
him. The dirt came out
Okay, but
eventually.
2023. All this was happening in 1979.
Yeah.
Like,
That's true. I
Like
feel like
his-
he'd get canceled somehow.
Right.
Somebody would find something on him and be like,
Exactly.
expose him, and he would get
I
canceled.
just don't feel like people are made like that anymore. I
Well,
don't think people are built for it.
you know who they're
Yeah,
not made
I
like?
agree.
The guy who got shot at and didn't tell anyone.
Nobody's scared. He's not, people aren't
like,
made like that
that's
either.
what I'm
I want
saying.
to know where he's at. I
don't
hope
like
he's
that
in therapy.
guy. I like that guy.
He's fine.
a good friend.
He's a big Tampa name. I
yeah.
didn't say who he was,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's fine.
The
Yeah.
nicest
And Charlie
friend,
Miranda-
but like too nice. Like self-preservation.
Well,
Like
you know, he's on the payroll. He's like
But-
his conciliere, whatever you
That's
call
true.
it.
That's
Like,
you
true.
know?
let's say that this guy, his name was actually Tony Zappone.
Yeah.
Let's say, which is the kind of name that you would expect to not say about this.
rolls off the tongue.
Right.
Yeah, he's not telling.
Tony says that, let's say Tony doesn't tell anyone in 2023, but like in the restaurant, there's going to be like 8 people with their phones out at least.
These
Oh,
days.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
For
going to be
sure.
on
So,
TikTok.
I
That's going to
think-
be on Instagram
yes.
before you can get home.
And I think that's why you'll never see another Gene Holloway for as long as he was Gene Holloway, because
That's true.
how could you? Everything's so published. And you think those were the first 18-year-old girls he picked up?
Oh, that's what I
And
said.
do
It
you
was the
think,
fourth
yeah,
time. That's
no
why the wife
way.
was like, all right, enough is enough now.
and you think he checked those IDs?
They didn't
no.
even have any IDs.
Right.
They were probably like 16 saying they were 18.
Exactly. Like,
Please.
you know,
Oh,
Tony,
my gosh.
you know,
Or the
Tony
80s.
didn't. It was 79. You know, Tony
Yeah.
didn't check either. So that's
Wow.
now
Good
they
Lord.
would
You
definitely
You went to
get
the
caught.
Seawolf
Good for Tony.
to find a Gene
That
to
is
take you to
uh-huh.
the drag show after.
literally
this
why.
is what it was
I'm
all
dead.
about.
I'm
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they don't make them like that anymore.
That they could not.
No.
Yeah,
No.
and also like people don't do it. People do it for the clout these days.
Yeah.
And that was just part of the story with him. It's like he didn't have he did do it for the clout, kinda, because he stayed in the headlines.
I also just feel like it was like part of his personality
it
because
was
I feel
him.
right.
It wasn't just for Instagram. It
like
was
I feel
him.
like people that like do things for the clout, it's like you can usually always tell because it's so like infrequent,
It's
and then
not
it's like
them.
it gets that braggy tone.
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, you're just doing it
This
for
isn't
whatever.
you.
But this guy was just like unhinged. Like I feel like he would just be at his restaurant like, oh yeah, I'm going to wrestle a tiger.
Yeah.
Like Russell Brant or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
just like casually like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do now, and
Yeah.
it's just like.
And he actually wanted to do it. He wasn't
Right.
just doing it to do it. He wanted to do
Yeah.
it. And it worked for him. I mean, he lived his life. He lived his life literally on his own terms.
He did.
Yeah.
He even had his death on his own terms.
Yeah.
He's still alive.
Yeah, because I'm like, so my dad had been like, I don't actually know. I was like, is he alive? He's like, I don't know. And then I'm like searching for his obit, like thinking, oh, I'll find like
Yeah.
the Ballad of Gene Holloway that way. No, this man. And then
Gene's chilling.
in the
He's
Lakeland
just hanging.
Ledger recently, they did a piece on him.
Recently?
Yeah,
I
like,
could not.
so the Tampa Bay Times article is from like
That's funny.
2020.
Yeah.
So when all this Joe Exotic stuff comes out,
Yes.
Tampa
They
Bay
went and
Times
talked
is
to
like,
him.
why? No, he didn't do the interview. They did not interview him.
They did like old stuff. They just like recapped his
They
story.
interviewed people like Tony Zappone and Charlie Miranda,
Okay.
big names in Tampa that like weren't like not Gene.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Lakeland Ledger, I think in like 2022 did a piece on him, and I'm like reading it, and they're like, yeah, he's in Odessa, and I'm like, wait, so this is like current, this is like now.
That is
I
bananas.
wonder if he's married again.
I think he is. Yeah. I think
Imagine
he is
just
married
running
again.
into him at like Starbucks.
I
like,
know. I live near Odessa. I'm like,
Well, if you, yeah,
right? Like,
I like to think that he
Publix.
has not changed his wardrobe.
yes, I hope so. I hope
I
not.
hope he's still doing it to some degree.
Yes.
He's out there looking for treasure in like a giant fur coat. There's no doubt in my mind.
To me, he's like a movie character. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Literally is a movie character.
yes, and I
How
feel
is
like
this not a movie.
I seriously
I
like some
don't
producer in
know.
Tampa needs to pick this up and like
We
make
have
this.
Cocaine
It's a
Bear and then
documentary.
Right, we have a Sharknado and Cocaine Bear, but we don't have anything about Gene.
the Ballad of Gene Holloway. It's made to be
It's
told.
already written.
Yeah.
It's already written. Yeah. I mean,
That's
I don't
wild.
know. Maybe this will be the start of something.
This is like Lakeland's version of Wolf of Wall Street.
I was thinking about him. When you were telling the story, I was kind of thinking about Wolf of Wall Street when I was
Yeah.
like cocaine, because I'm like, it's just a complete unhinged,
Just
drug-fueled,
chaos.
chaotic story.
So I was trying to find the pieces of this, but this was like in a lot of implied things, and like
Right.
people would talk around it, but they wouldn't say it. So with his whole debt thing, there was also a question of whether or not that was like drug.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
read that.
Yeah, so like, but I couldn't find anyone actually like giving any details or like saying anything. It was just like he could have been involved in drugs.
That would be a
I'm
reason
like,
to
could have.
fake your
Yeah,
death.
100%.
Depending on who he owed money to.
He said so, and then people were like, "Why did he go to prison?" And I think it was more of like a, like I said, like, "Hey, we're gonna get you on something, man."
Yeah.
He apparently at some point told somebody, "Well, prison's the safest place for me."
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be in a real bad. You have to owe a lot of money to really scary people for you to be like, yeah, prison. I'll take it. I'll take
Go to
it.
prison.
This is why I don't believe.
Let me
that.
check in. Can I do an early check in?
Yes. I'll be right here. Where you want me to sit? Okay, right here. I'll be here.
This is why I don't believe that, because
Why?
the drug cartels can find you in prison.
That's also
but
true.
it
not-
depends
you're
on
not
how much you
safe.
owe. I
Plus,
mean, he
he
might
was-
not have owed like millions. It could have just been like six figures.
I think
or,
if he
you know.
owed anything, it was probably like from his own use, not that he was like
Yeah,
selling.
no, I don't think he was selling. I think he may have just, amongst his other debts, he also
Yeah.
owed some pretty scary
Like,
guys.
20, 50 grand
Right,
to
and
like
he
some
was just
guy
like,
for cocaine.
you know what, I
Yep.
just can't even deal with this. Let me just get off myself, but in a fake way.
Right, because there's like no doubt that he
Makes
was
sense.
absolutely on
Had
substances.
to be on
Oh,
something. And it
yeah.
doesn't sound like alcohol, even though I'm sure he was past.
I'm
I mean,
sure
he
that
just drank
contributed.
that every day, but
Yeah.
like he's
Oh,
not.
he had
That's
his
not
glass of
bothering
whiskey
him. Yeah, that's not bothering him.
to ferment his
It's the other
insides.
stuff.
That's what like that always gets to me. Like I have
Gosh.
too much whiskey and I'm a mess the next day. And
No.
there's people out there who are
Oh,
like
no.
fully like lines of coke,
Dude, it's insane.
gallons,
Yeah.
and they're
Like,
fine.
And that's how
Oh.
they wake. That's how they come alive.
Yes. Well, when
Wild.
I used to live in Savannah, it was so there were like two military bases on either side of Savannah. There was like a normal army base, and then there was like a special forces base, so Army Rangers, and like everybody, because where I went to school for art school, it was mostly women.
Yeah.
So and then
Yeah.
if the guys that did go there, most of them were gay.
Yeah.
Right. So really, the military men were like all
The
we had
men.
to like choose from in town. And so I remember like my one friend was talking to somebody. We were all in a car like going out to the bars, and it's like even though you're special forces, like you're still getting like drug tested, there would be guys in there in this car just ripping lines, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna get kicked out. Like,
considering what they have to do, I don't know.
I've heard coke comes out of your system earlier for those tests, so you're okay. It's
Yeah.
better to
I
do
bet
that.
I bet they weren't smoking weed. That's
I was
just
gonna
around
say
a long
it's
time.
better to do that than smoke weed.
Yeah.
It's
True.
what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
what
don't
I've
know
heard
any
too.
of that to be true. I don't know this to be true. So yeah, I mean, but you know what? It's so interesting because, you know, having you here talking about this, I mean, it is kind of like that influencer, sort of like influencer before the influencer type of thing.
Yes.
And just like a personality. Like, this is what people really used to do. They used to live wild as shit. And like, they didn't even take a picture of it
100%
themselves.
Well, no, he did.
Well, he did, but
He
you
had
know what I
many.
mean. Like, so now it's like, you know, we sort of do this in kind of a simulated way, but you know, I don't know. It's just interesting.
that makes sense though, because
Yeah.
it's like Gene just did it because I feel like it's so different, but it's kind of the same concept as
It
like
is.
today, you know?
It is. It's the
Because
same
now it's
concept.
like YouTubers do stuff to like get YouTube famous, and then it's like Gene was just out there because they didn't have YouTube or Instagram. He's just like, I'll just do all this crazy shit and hope that it just creates so much talk that the whole town knows about like what's going on.
Pretty
It
much
worked.
the same concept.
It did
It
work.
worked. Eighth largest grossing restaurant at one point. So
Nuts.
What I'm taking away from this is that we definitely
We
need
need
to
to get
do
tigers.
a You're Not Wrong Red Lobster meetup. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Get some Cheddar Bay biscuits. Cheers to Gene.
I've only been to a Red Lobster once in my life. So
What?
Oh,
I'm down to go again.
Elizabeth.
I feel like I need to go again. Yeah.
those crab legs.
Where is one?
Yeah, Tampa
That's a
doesn't
good-
have a lot of them. You know where there's one?
You know what?
Near Busch Gardens.
Ooh, coincidence?
There's
I
a
think
Red
not.
Lobster near Busch Gardens. And it's actually like, well, I haven't been to Red Lobster. My son and I were talking about it. It's like, since he was like 6, it's been a really long time.
I haven't been since I was a kid. I
It
don't
fell
think.
off, like I said. But everybody keeps saying go back. I don't know. Anyway,
Well,
very interesting.
that's all I got for you. That was the
Very
story of
interesting,
Gene
Joe. I love
Holloway.
that.
I hope you guys liked it.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was very interesting. Something that I didn't really know a lot about. And literally, he is the Tiger King before you. He came before you.
Right.
Joe.
Before Joe. And before Carol.
And before Carol, yeah.
Carol.
He's the OG.
Carol.
And like I said
Carol
before,
didn't hold
it's
a
kind of
candle
the
to him.
perfect it's kind of the perfect I'm glad this lined up because, you know,
Too.
foodie, influencer, true crime, kind of. I mean, there was lots of crime here, but just not, I guess, reported to the police.
This aligned perfectly. Before we go, cool. Like, where can people find you? I don't know if I really expressed that.
Oh, yeah. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Social Shepherd Adventures, and be on the lookout for a podcast coming soon.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And that's about all she wrote on this one. I mean, for now.
He's
still kicking.
He's still kicking.
We got time.
Treasure hunter.
We got time.
Listen, he might find Atlantis. You never know.
You never know.
If anyone will. But thank you so much for listening. We hope you like what you heard. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. We're everywhere. Apple, Spotify, all the things.
Leave us a review.
Yeah, do that. I love that.
Me too.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening.
See ya.